Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, Two Blokes Chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
This is the Two Blokes Chatting radio show. My name's Neil Butler. His name is Rob Cameron. Rob, we have a great relationship with the Geelong and District Football League, and we have made it our business to maintain some contact with the league, and we have another one of our GDFL guests today.
We do indeed, and we've gone straight to the top of the pile because when the GDFL is mentioned around Geelong, if you're asked to name a person, Neville Whitley is usually going to be the first one mentioned, but I guarantee that the second name you will hear when talking about that is the great Big Dick Philpott. Good morning to you, great man.
G'day, mate. Ben, and good to talk to you guys. Seeing you guys are doing all the two blokes talking all the time.
It's very good. Now, we should mention too, Neville very cleverly on the back of a conversation before about footballs prepared for games of footy, we should note that he did send a reminder that, and it is very interesting, that AFL umpires like to have their balls tight because they need to bounce them, so they want to look good when they do a proper bounce. But at local level, when the balls don't need to be bounced, they don't need to be as tight. So that might explain why Ray Chamberlain talks funny, Dick.
Not going to go there.
He's put it outside off stump, half pitcher, and he's put a bloke deep at cover.
Yeah.
He just wants you to smack it down his throat, doesn't he?
We've had some terrific characters in local footy umpiring too over the years too. You can never forget a bloke by the name of Adam Gladkey.
Yes.
Now, Adam's claim to fame was not the fact that he was a great umpire, just asking, but he used to always have a magnificent new bow tie on every time he was seen publicly.
Presumably
Really?
not on the football field.
No, not on the football.
Never wore one umpiring?
No.
No, not to my knowledge. Well, because, I didn't get very close to umpires.
Now,
As an observer.
The reason we have you on today is there is a segment which Noel Fanning, who we had on the show last week, has done some marvellous work to get matches from the past up on the GDFL website and his own beloved Newtown and Chilwell Footy Club website. And one of the games we wanted to talk about was probably a pivotal game for its unpleasantness, but it was the last when Neil mentioned before, we used to all love watching the VFA because it was a game of fights that some football broke out occasionally. And the GDFL was sort of...
Philip Gibbs imprisoned the commentary box for about 3.5 weeks or something.
Yes, that was fantastic. But the GDFL was sort of renowned for it. A lot of people thought it was great, but it needed to be fixed up. And I reckon one of the games that started that was a game that you were heavily involved in, Bellpost Hill versus North Geelong, I believe 1990. A lot of unpleasantness, but one you would remember well, Dick, no doubt.
I love the way you use my name and heavily in the same sentence.
Harsh.
My solicitor about this later.
Doesn't matter, we haven't got an audience.
How I can remember that game was fantastic. Actually, it was North Geelong's first year in Division 1 after they had been, their second year Division 1, after they had been relegated a couple of years earlier back to Division 2, and it was their first crack at a Division 1 grand final.
Dick, you're allowed to use the word our first crack because you were heavily involved in the club at the time, so I think you're stepping away now, but I want you to step right back into the thick of things here. It was our football club, your North Geelong, and you had a lot to do with their elevation, so don't underplay your role here, my friend.
Fair enough, mate. Well, it was going to be a great year, there's no doubt about that. We were excited about it. We'd come out to the Ring Road Recreation Reserve, as it's more affectionately known as nowadays. Now they've got a ring road going around it, and out at Bellpost Hill. And it was never a happy hunting ground for the Magpies. Always used to get thumped out there all the time. And this particular day, we went out there. It was about round 4 or 5, something like that. It was early June, 1990, 30 years ago. Hard to believe. And we were currently sitting on top of the tree, undefeated. And we're always, obviously everybody was gunning for us to try to knock us off that perch. And the football was of a terrific standard, actually. It was going along and free-flowing very well. The commentators that day were Lindsay Tillman.
Oh, dear.
Dear and Lindsay Tillman in the same sentence. There you go again. Lindsay, of course, was the publican of the Argyle Hotel. So anybody that's under 30 years of age will have no idea what we're talking about. more commonly known as these days, I think it's called Murphy's. Is that right?
That's correct, yep.
Oh, yep. Okay, thank you. I'm a relative newcomer, so yeah, okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, okay. So, which, by the way, was the Argyle paddock before it was a pub, and that was where North Geelong actually played their footy back in the 19th century. Did you know that?
No.
It's unusual because Rob's the only one I know who was actually alive in the 19th century.
There's not many people around that can talk about that. But that's an absolute fact, that actually was the Argyle paddock, and they built a pub on it. So anyway, we were out there this day, and Lindsay Tillman was one of the commentators, and the other commentator was Rotten Ronnie Brain.
Another legend of the microphone.
Absolutely, and of course you couldn't get a better couple of these two with their rhetoric commentary and their fun and their little idiosyncrasies and goodness knows what. And all of a sudden, I think Malcolm Key might have been involved, number 18 of the North Geelong Magpies.
Allegedly. I was talking to Toothy Moore yesterday and he put him in first, yes.
Yes, I think Malcolm might have taken a swipe.
I'll sit here and do the allegedlys, okay?
Allegedly, see, going. And all of a sudden it was on for young and old. It was in the forward pocket, actually. If you know the Belpost Hill Footy Club, that forward pocket.
There's four of them, Dick.
From the man to the left.
Yeah, okay, I've got you now. Yep.
Yeah, right in that little part there was the left. And then, well, there was a few lefts shoving. And it just suddenly erupted. Babsy Moroney allegedly was in there. Remember, little Alan Moroney was number 26 and a real cheeky little rover. And you've got then Gary Birch. I think he was playing his 842nd game for the club that day. You've got Grant Buse in the side. Grant Buse was in the fracas, number 8. Of course, the brother of Andrew Buse, and a very talented Buse family. There's another Buse that played local footy too, which was Stephen Buse. He played for St Mary's. I just thought you'd like to know that.
Yeah, no, this is impressive.
Yeah, right.
Impressive.
But by now they're all swinging hard.
Mate, they were swinging hard. There was one particular player called Craig Eves, and he had one bloke in a headlock, allegedly, and was giving him a nice old scene too with one arm wrapped around his head to keep it completely still. So his other arm had no problem in communicating well. And it was pretty fearsome. And it went for about 3 or 4 minutes. And Lindsay Tillman must have said, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, about 100 times, saying, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in football. And he went on, because he was writing for the Geelong News back then.
He probably would have said goodness as well, did he, Dick?
Oh, my goodness.
Yes.
It disappeared nowadays. And at front page, it was basically disgraceful brawl or something, foot brawl up on the hill, and it was a really bad thing for local footy. So we have a little chuckle about these things, but it was a very bad image to project, particularly how we've all grown up since then.
Allegedly, you needed to wander onto the ground yourself and a bit of a calming influence, Dick. Is that correct?
I was hoping we'd miss that part. Yes, I was pretty new to the president's job. I'd only taken over a few years earlier, and I always felt it was my role, if it needed, was to perhaps just make sure everything was okay and to look after people from getting into any trouble, and which I was completely wrong. You do not do those sort of things. And when it was on in its full whack, I thought whack being a loose word, I should have used it.
Allegedly.
Onto the ground. These days I may have wobbled onto the ground, but I walked onto the ground, and I started separating a couple of players, and that was okay. You know, I thought I'd done my job pretty well there, but I immediately got summons before the league investigation officer, who had never been heard of before this day. He was appointed by Neville and the GDFL executive. You actually realise how long Neville's been around local footy as well. And there was a bloke called Eric Nichols.
Another legend of GDFL footy and the Geelong Footy Club and the East Geelong Footy Club.
And I'd never met Eric before in my entire life, and I got the phone call to say that I have to meet Eric Nichols at a certain time and place, and I had to sit down and explain, and very good reasons, as to what a president of a local football club was doing on the playing arena in the middle of a fracas.
Well, it was probably a good thing that you're doing, and it's a nice little segue. We'll get back to where the GDFL is now from that dark day, but it's a perfect segue to our next conversation, is the role of a president. And your other great love in life is also black and white, the Collingwood Club. And the most successful clubs I've seen over the journey you wouldn't have a clue who the president was, because he did what needed to be done, just like Dick Philpott did behind the scenes, and you just looked after your club and your players and got things rolling. But the great Eddie McGuire, who has always been known for his ego, it's been out there for a long time, but this year, more so than ever, he's probably starting to get to the point where, well, if I was a Collingwood supporter even, I'd be quite embarrassed. You love the place, and you're probably a big fan of Eddie's. Is he walking that fine line just a little bit on the wrong side?
Yeah, maybe his use-by date is getting close. Look, that flag that they won the Pies back, was it 2010, I think it was? Yep. That knocked off St Kilda in the second play. And he needed that, because I think people were starting to say, Eddie, you've a lot of huff and blow over the last 20 years, but really we're not getting many results. So we got that result, and that sort of kept him going for a while. But, look, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He is a good president, no doubt about that. And he certainly puts the club on the map, and he certainly, as you say, you think of presidents of clubs and you could probably name 5 or 6 maybe, but then you'd probably be struggling, because if I said to you who the president of Fremantle was or the West Coast Eagles was, you'd probably know, of course, you guys being right in the middle of the media, but a lot of people would probably hesitate and think, I just can't think who the president is. But people like Eddie and, of course, Jeff Kennett, another flamboyant president that everybody sort of immediately knows who they are. He does his job well. And look, one thing he's just got to be careful of is he likes to portray Collingwood as everything's great at Collingwood, none of your business, everybody. And yet when something like that happened down here in Geelong with Jack Stevens, he immediately thumped his hand on the desk and said, we demand to know what Geelong are doing about it.
Yeah, that was when it started, and he got fronted about it, and he seemed to get worse from that point on. That instead of saying, "Yeah, I've done the wrong thing, I'll back up," he just kept doubling down, and it's got worse and worse.
That's right. And I mean, he put in a protection mode, of course, for Steele Sidebottom. Yeah. Because he called around to have a cup of coffee with young Wellesley.
He went round for a cup of coffee. That's not necessarily what happened, allegedly.
Allegedly, and but he sort of got on the back foot and said, stop asking me what's going on at Collingwood. It is none of your business. Well, hang on, Eddie. You've gone out and you've insisted that other clubs tell you their business. So you can't have one rule for one.
So that's that. It's the media, and if he behaved like that just as a president, that's fine. He's got to live with that. But when you're trying to be in the media and attract listeners and ratings, you've got to be flamboyant. And I don't think he does it right. And he's embarrassing the club, I feel.
Yeah, he does do that. That does embarrass the club. And he's got to be one or the other sometimes. When he had the footy show, he was a great compere on that footy show, but he had to basically, even back then, I thought, you've got to be one or the other, Eddie. You can be the great media personality, or you can be the president of the Collingwood Football Club. You can't be both. He worked out he could probably, in hindsight, he hasn't done a bad job of either, but I think now he's sort of getting a bit on the nose at the moment, because he's a little bit, like it's none of anyone else's business except it's Collingwood.
And interesting, he's got that Donald Trump persona of, okay, which one of you blokes is going to go and tell him to pull his head in? Because I don't know that there'd be anyone lining up, would there?
Oh, you're not wrong, and that's the thing. And look, he'll probably have the job for a while longer yet, but he, as I said, his heart's on his sleeve. There's no doubt about that. But apparently he's very good with the players. When there's a problem, he will go to the players individually and he'll have a talk to them right behind the scene with nobody else involved at all, and see if he can get through to them when there's an issue. So he's good like that.
Because I think part of the issue too...
You think of the Rat Pack, as in Didak and Swanee and those sort of blokes. They were sort of hard to control at times, and Heath Shaw was amongst those guys. And now, of course, you've got Steele... Look, the thing with Steele Sidebottom, he's such an unassuming young man that he really is out of character for him. And everyone sort of says the words, we've all been there and done that. Well, I think in his case we have. You know what I mean? He just he made one mistake one night, and you wouldn't see Steele Sidebottom making a mistake again, I would believe.
Yeah. Because the question, we're getting close to having to wind up, but the question that I've got in terms of how that all works out at Collingwood is, I don't know that there's an heir apparent to Eddie McGuire, and the issue that I see happening is, if for whatever reason he takes one step too far and they say, no, sorry, Eddie, you're going to have to pull the pin, there's going to be a vacuum, I reckon, behind him, whereas in most clubs there's that almost like a succession plan that says we know who the next one is. That's not apparent at Collingwood, is it?
No, it's not. You honestly, in all honesty, I wouldn't have a clue who could possibly follow Eddie. Usually there'd be a great past player sitting in there somewhere, like there was Kevin Rose on the sidelines and those sort of guys.
Yeah.
And, but there's nobody. And you're dead right, Ben. There's just nobody I can think of that could walk straight into the president's role at Collingwood should Eddie decide to walk away.
Well, Dick, we thank you very much for your time this morning. It's always good to chat to you, and we thank you again for your contribution to local footy. You certainly wear that black and white with great pride, consistently.
And to 94.7 The Pulse.
And 94.7 The Pulse.
He's obviously one of our higher profile personalities here.
On Friday morning, you can catch him with Dennis Scanlon every 10 o'clock Friday morning for a footy chat.
With Rob on the panel, it's always a pleasure. And the great Bucket Mouth, of course, one of the great commentators in the modern era.
Good morning, Ronnie.
He now commentates on our program.
I know he's a terrific bloke. He's absolutely a bloke. But I want you guys to now tell me, and I want you to, I really want you, I'm putting you on the spot, I want you to talk to me about the new recruit at Collingwood, and not the Kelly boy either. Tell me all about him. And his name is?
Isaac Quaynor. Now, here's a piece of trivia for you.
Come on.
I'll give you the trivia about Isaac Quaynor. When he was 3...
This is a cop-out.
His father bought him a soccer ball, and his uncle said, no, if he's going to go to school in Australia, because his dad's from Ghana, if he's going to go to school, he's going to at least have to know how to kick an Australian rules football. Here's an Australian rules football. Now, that uncle is absolutely responsible for him playing for Collingwood now, and I am that man.
There you go.
Is that right?
There's a small world story for you.
So you're welcome.
You're not going to tell me the name of that other bloke?
Yeah, I am going to have a crack at it.
No, I've already told me mine. Now Rob's having a crack.
Atu Bozenevelaji.
It's Argy.
Thank you very much.
Argy, sorry.
And I'll have that with extra cheese.
We actually broadcast a game last year on GoFooty.live, and he played, and he was, I think we spoke to the coach and said, what do we call him? And he said, AJ or something.
Well, I think his first name will do. Atu, that'll be do. And of course, being a good Fijian boy, we can absolutely say that he plays with absolutely no bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, well played, sir.
Well
done. No, Rob missed that. I got it. Thank you very much.
I know that. Thanks, man. Good on you.
Yeah, right, mate.
All the best, Dick. We look forward to talking to you again in the future. Really appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, love your work. Okay, take care. Bye.
Thanks, mate.